Okay, so this video we will be starting the beginner's guide to Love2D in the Lua language. The first thing you will need to do is go to github.com, Programming Rainbows, Beginner's Guide to Love2D. We're going to clone this repository, so I'm just going to copy the URL here. I'm going to go into my terminal, and I'm just going to git clone it. And then I'll cd into the directory, and you can open it up with VS Code if you are so inclined. You might need to set up a Lua LSP for that, or a Love2D specific LSP. I'm not really sure about that, but it should be pretty simple. Just look it up somewhere online. I'm using NeoVim, so I'm going to just open it up in NeoVim. But either way, you can open it up in the folder or open the program up and then tell it to open up that folder. So since I'm already in the directory, I'm just going to open it. So what we have here is we have fonts, images, sound, music, and sound. These are assets that we'll be using for this project. Also, all the code for the videos that I'll be using is already there, so you can look in each of the directories. The code we're actually working with is in these two files right here called confit.lua and main.lua. So you'll see duplicates of these two files in each one of these folders. We will be starting from scratch, so we'll be deleting these. But I would just like to show you what the end result project would look like. So I'm going to copy the code. Well, it should be the top level code, but I'm just going to copy the code from video 4 into the top level just to make sure I'm working with the right code. So that would be video 4, the top level. And to run a Lua project, or sorry, a Love2D project, the first thing you're going to want to do is use the word love. You can also in Windows drag it onto the actual binary application. You can take the text file and just drag it straight on, I believe. But I'm going to be using the command line. So I'm going to use the word love. And I'm telling love to run what's in this folder. It's going to automatically look for config.lua and main.lua in this folder. If I just put a dot here, that means this directory. And I'm going to run it like that. And this is the end project.
Love.
So love moves around the screen and it says love.
Love.
I can move the Lua symbol around with the keyboard.
Love.
And I can change the background colors by pressing space, and it says Lua.
Love.
And I can pause the music. Sorry, I didn't do that earlier. I can pause the music by pressing M. And it has an icon. It has a title. You can see the title up here for me. I'm in a tiling window manager. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be building. We're going to be learning how to do all those things step by step. So I would like to talk about Lua first, since this is in Lua. Lua is a scripting and interpreted scripting language, and this is absolutely the first language that you should learn if you are new to programming, or if you're helping somebody else who's new to programming. No matter if you're young or old, it does not matter. This language is the best place to start because it is very simple, but it is also very powerful language, and it just works. So when you're a new person to programming, you already have a lot on your table to learn the concepts of programming, and all those concepts are in the Lua language, but you don't want to be kind of held back by problems with the language. You would like to just be learning what you need to learn, not struggling because there's something wrong with the language or something wrong with packages that you're using for the language. You need it to just work, especially if you're a beginning programmer. So there is no other language that can stand up to Lua. Lua is the #1 beginning language. You should not be using anything else. There is like Ruby is pretty good, but it is a little bit higher concepts. Python is almost good, but it's too large and it's very brittle, and it has many of the packages that you'll be required to use are broken dependencies. They'll have all kinds of bugs in them, and you will not be enjoying yourself, especially if you're a new person to programming. If somebody suggests that you should learn JavaScript first, you should definitely not listen to them because it's not a good language. It is a language if you want to do anything on the web, but it's not a good starting language at all, and it's also not a good language. So those are all kind of interpreted languages. So Lua is one of the fastest languages. It's one of the simplest languages, but it can do everything that you need to do. So this is the starting place. So if you didn't know, if you pick the right language, you can always move on to any other language afterwards. But this one, to learn concepts, this is absolutely the best. And it's used in places like Roadblocks. It's used in NeoVim to configure NeoVim. It's used in many places. It works well with C, and it's well to embed. So, but it's very good, like I said, for learning, because you just need to learn the concepts. You don't want to be fighting with the language because there's something wrong with the language. So, and this is a very small, simple, but it just works, which is really good. And so Love2D is using the Lua language. And Love2D is also very well supported. It's well documented, and it just works, which is really good, because the alternative to Love2D for a beginner programmer is something like Pygame 0, which is very buggy, non-supported, it's not updated, it's very brittle, it doesn't work most of the time. So you won't know if mistakes are your mistakes or mistakes because there's problems with the actual Pygame 0 package, and there are many problems with it. So this one is nice because it just works, and it works on all the platforms, and it's very easy to use, and it's very forgiving. Okay, so we'll be working with Love2D, and I would like to show you how simple it is to kind of, you don't really need anything special to make a project. So I'm going to delete these two files. So Love is going to be looking for these two files right here. I'm going to delete them. We'll start from scratch. Okay, so the way that we would normally run Love is we would just type Love like I did before, and we could give it the name of a file, but I would give it the directory that we're in. So dot stands for the directory I'm in right now. And if I do this right now, it's actually not going to work because I have no files for Love to use. So it's gonna, this is what it looks like when it doesn't work. So it opens a window, it's a blue window, and it's going to give you an error. And it's telling you basically it can't find things that it's looking for. So it actually needs at least a main.lua file. So if we create a main.lua file, I'm just going to use the word touch. Now, if I run it again, even though that I just made a completely blank text file, it's main.lua, there's nothing in it. This is a completely empty file, there's nothing in it. And if I run Love again, it's going to work. It's going to just work. I don't need to have anything in here. Love just says, hey, I need that file. Even if you have nothing in it whatsoever, I'm going to go ahead and try to start up anyway. And there we go. We got a black screen. It's not an error. This is how it should work. This is the default. And we even got a title. It says untitled up here. It's all working. So that kind of shows you, and I can close the window too, which is really nice. So this kind of shows you the simplicity of it. It's the default is I'm going to just work for you. There still will be bugs and everything else. Anytime you can make mistakes, but this is a very good place to start with. So the website love2d.org is pretty simple, but if you're a new person, it's still, you may not know where to go, what to find. You're not even sure what you're looking for. So this website is really good. They show you a couple examples here, but we'll walk through step by step. And the first thing I want to do is actually look into the wiki. This is where all the information, and I've already opened it here. And it has a bunch of information here on the left. Each one of these is kind of like a subfolder of information. But the first thing I want to look at, there's actually two files that we can use. One is the main.lua you've already seen that I created, but the other one is conf.lua. And that other file right here, which I'm going to open right here, this one actually tells it information about the program, about what the window should be, like the size of the window, the name of the window, the icon the window should have, stuff like that. We can set it here, and this gets loaded before your game gets loaded. So this is kind of some pre-configuration stuff. So we can set the width of the window, the height of the window. There's other stuff down here. We're not going to work with too much stuff. The only thing we really want to do is work with the width and height to set the title and to set an icon. Okay. So we don't really need much from in here. Like I said, we just need those kind of four simple things. And we actually don't really even need width and height because it defaults to 800 by 600, which is the size I'm going to be using for this project. but I would like to just use them anyway. So we could just grab this code right here. I'm just going to copy it. And what I'm not going to put it in this main.lua. I'm going to put it in the conf.lua. So these are the two files that Love is going to look for automatically. And you can make these are just text files. You can make them however that you want to make a file. If you want to use your mouse and right click, or, you know, I could do it instead. I could go over here and just make a new file. There we go. And it's just an empty file. So I'm just going to paste that in. And the reason why I'm getting this duplicate message here is because I've actually got this file created over and over again. So this is kind of like, it's because of the way I put the code in the other folders. So if you get this, you can safely ignore it, but it could be kind of annoying. But or you could just delete these video 1, 2, 3, 4 folders, and then that will go away, because that's what's happening here. It's saying, hey, I can also see this in here. That's my LSP right down here for Lua, my Lua LSP, my language server. That's kind of telling me if I've done something wrong or not. It's telling me I have a duplicate, but I don't really. Love is not going to see this duplicate. I'm going to leave it these sizes here, and we're going to see the window be slightly larger than it was before. So I'm going to save this file, make sure you save it, and then I'm going to go to run it again. You open up your terminal, make sure you're in the folder that you're working in. I'm inside of this folder in my terminal. And again, I'm going to do love dot. And see the window is slightly bigger than it was before, because the default was 800 by 600 and this was 1024 by 768. So we can see that that has changed the size of the window. But I'm actually going to use the 800 by 600. And I'm going to save that again. And we will see that'll be slightly smaller. There we go. So let's look one more time back at this. There's two other things we would like. We would like to change the title, because right now it is by default untitled. And we would like to set the window icon. So if you're in Windows, I'm not sure if Mac does it, but like KDE Plasma does it, and GNOME shows an icon on the window. I don't have icons here, unfortunately, to show you. I have no window title, no icons going on, because I'm in a tiling window manager. But I will show you before the end of this video what it would look like in KDE Plasma, but it'll look the same on all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these two, or you could write them out. Since it's already there, I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to put it right in here. And we can name this what we want to show on our title of our window. So I'm going to call it open close background colors, because that's the name of this video that I'm making. It's showing you how to open, how to close, how to draw background, and how to change colors. Okay, so if I've set that now, we're going to look up here in the top here, right here, this where it says NVIM, NeoVim, it's going to be up there. So if you look up there now, you'll see open, close, background colors. And if you have a floating window manager, it'll say it right here on top of your window, but it doesn't for me. Okay, we'll set the icon as well, but we will not see it just yet. We'll see it later, because I have to do I have to create a nested Windows session to show it. Now it's set to nil value right now, which just means it's nothing. It's set to nothing. And what we want to do is give it the path of a graphical file that we can use. And I believe it needs to be like a square file, like the width and height should be the same. If not, it might. I'm not sure if it keeps it as a square or if it compresses it so it's in the square shape. So the image file we're already using is in fact a square shape. It's in the images folder, and it's going to be this Lua logo. And that is already width and height is equal, so it'll be fine. So it's in the images folder. So we're going to give a relative path to this file. So since we are already working in the top level where conf and main is, the relative path would be images and then Lua minus logo PNG. So this is in quotations and it's images, Lua logo PNG. Okay, it's telling me I have a trailing space. Again, that's just the LSP. It wouldn't affect the program. Now, we won't see anything because, again, I have to open a nested floating window manager to show you what this looks like, and I will show you later. But what we want to see is that no error occurred, and then I will show you what the error looks like. So it looks good. Now let me show you if we had messed this up. Let's say we spelled it wrong. We forgot to put the G on it. We should see that blue screen and some information about what went wrong. Okay, and it's telling us right up here, we could not open images Lua, because this file doesn't exist. It's spelled wrong. So I'm going to fix this spelling error. And then, like I said, later on, we will see what that icon actually looks like. Okay, so we are kind of done with this. We're not going to do anything else in here. You can read through it, and there's different options. And when you make more advanced games later, you might need something else in here. But for this project, we don't really need anything. And this is just kind of some pre-configured stuff. There's not a, it's not where your main game is going to be. This is just telling some configuration options. But it is here. It's in, if you're just in the very top level, up here where it says love and config files, that's where you find that information. So I'm just going to close that since we're not working with that. I'm going to close this and this. Okay, so what we want to do is if we look here, where is it here? So this screen right here, which is actually the very top link up here, love, it's showing us some these functions here. This function love.load, function love.update with DT being passed in, and function love.draw. These functions are built into Love2D, and if Love finds them in your main.lua file, Love will automatically run them for you. So it's like you've defined this function. You don't actually need to call it. Love is going to say, I know what those are. Those are things I'm looking for. I know that you want to load something. I'm going to load it for you. I know you want to update something. I'm going to update that. And I know you want to draw something. I'm going to draw it. So it'll call this load one time to load whatever that you need to load for the game. And then after that is finished, it's going to start running this update and draw in a loop over and over again. It's going to say, yep, I see that. Let's update. Let's draw. Let's update again. Let's draw. And it's just going to do that continually until you close the game. And that's your game loop. Basically 60 times a second these are going to happen. So I'm just going to grab these defaults right here, this example code, and we're going to copy it in. I'm going to use the skeleton, but let's just look at what the code looks like. It's building an expanding rectangle. So I'm just copying this code straight off the web page, and it doesn't go in here. We're done with this conf.lua file now. So I'm going to close this, and this is the file that we're working in. Oops. Closing this down here. Yeah, there we go. So we want to work in main.lua. This is where all the rest of our work is happening. So I'm just going to paste that code in here. And this is, again, my LSP. And the yellow you can safely ignore. And I might just delete these folders in a minute here so we don't see them anymore. But these other warnings that are green, this is because what we're doing is we're making these global variables. And you shouldn't make global variables. But what it's actually complaining about is that these global variables are not written the way global variables should be written. Global variables should be written with a capital letter in Lua. And so it's kind of asking, are you confused? Did you want these to be local? And so we are actually not going to make any global variables. But just for the purposes of me showing you this, I'm going to use their code. But yeah, my LSP is basically just complaining all over the place. And it's just kind of ignored it, and it's stopped with these complaining, so that's okay, I think. But anyway, let's just show the code. So it's going to be love dot the same because I'm working in this folder, and we should see this expanding. I think it's a green. Yeah, set the color. It looks like the red channel's turned off, and green and blue channel are turned on just under half. So this is a 0 to 1 thing. So it's saying there's no red whatsoever, and there is less than half. There's 40% green and 40% blue turned on. So it's kind of a greenish blue color, and it's updating. It's actually expanding the width and the height of this rectangle. There we go. So that was their example code. We're going to delete their example code, but we're going to leave in place the functions. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and delete anything that's not just the function. And these functions can be empty. Not like, say, Python, you would need to put pass in here, but these can just be empty. I'm going to delete the DT as well because we're not using delta time for this project. Okay, and so this is just the empty functions. And like I said, if it sees these, it's going to run the code that's in them. But there's no code, it's fine. It's just going to pass it. And I'm just going to show you, get a black screen again. That's great. No errors, no problems. Those warnings are, again, because it's saying that this love.draw was defined in all these different folders. And I'll just delete them so we don't have to worry about seeing that anymore. Okay, now we don't have that duplicate. So let's look at this again. So basically, like I said, this love.load is something where if you're loading resources, you need it to happen one time before your game runs. And then the update and the draw, this is game state updates or moving objects, things like that, and then drawing them. And that just happens over and over again. But we can also get keyboard input. So I would like to look at that first before we go too far. So if we go down here on the left side to keyboard, we'll end up on this page. And I want to look at this love key pressed. So if you press that button, you end up on this page. And this has a function called love key pressed. And you can put the key in. Well, this is just kind of a variable name. It's going to fill it with whatever key was pressed. And these are optional scan codes, things like that. So I think there is, yeah. So this is how it could look. We could see if the escape key is pressed. We could put key in here, scan code is repeat. These other two are optional. They don't even need to be here. They're not being used. But the key right here is actually being filled up with whatever key may have been pressed. And then we're checking, was that key equal to the escape key? And where we're getting this, if you look at these key constants right here, this is a link. If we look in this link here, we have all the keyboard constants. These are things that we can look for. So most of them are just straightforward. Escape is literally the word escape. Space is the word space. Everything else is kind of obviously what it would be. So we're going to add this one more function in here. And this, again, is going to be, it's a Lua built or a love built-in thing that love is going to look for when it sees it. And we actually want, I do want to make sure the program does shut down when I press escape. So it's nice that they already have the code here because I was going to do that anyway. So I have this load, and I'm going to put it here. And I'm not using these, so I'm just going to remove them. They're optional. So now what this is doing is these are keyboard events. If you kind of understand what events are, but basically what happens is if you close the screen, if you press a button, if you touch the mouse, if you do anything, an event is triggered. And remember, this thing loads one time, but these happen in a loop over and over again. Love actually looks for these functions and runs them 60 times a second. So imagine no key was pressed. It comes through here, nothing happens. No update happened, but I press a key. I press the A key, right? Update happens, nothing happens. Draw happens, nothing happens in draw. It comes up here again, and it's going to know that an event happened, that I pressed the A key. So this is going to start pulling through all the keyboard events, and it's going to fill them, this key variable with whatever they were. And it's going to say, is this key escape? Well, no, I pressed the A key, not escape. So it's going to pass it. And it's going to keep doing that until that queue is empty. And then it's going to do update, draw. And then if any new key events happen, it's going to check them again. So this is checking if we press the escape key. So this is, imagine this loop, game loop is happening over and over again. And I do want my program to close if I press the escape key or if I tell it to close. So I was going to write this code out manually anyway. It's nice that they have it. And we will use it for other things too. But let's just show that happening. And again, this is something that Love is automatically looking for. Okay, I'm going to press the escape key and it's closed. Okay, so we know that that works. We're getting keyboard input. So let's close up some of these. We will be using these. So what I want to do next is set the background color. And this is in this page right here. If we go down here on the left, we see Love Graphics right here. That's this page. And in this page, there's different things. And the one we're looking for is the set background color. So if you're looking through all this stuff here, there's one that is like set color and then set background color right here. And background color is the color of the renderer, the color of your empty screen before you've even put anything on top of it. And we can set that. And this one, we have to talk a little bit about it because generally in games, like a lot of C games and C++ and everything else, the colors are RGBA, which is red, green, blue, alpha. But the numbers involved are usually 0 to 255. It's usually a 1 byte number. Yeah, uint 8, 1 byte. And your possible range is from 0 to 255. And they used to do that in Love2D, but now they use a 0 to 1, and it's a floating point number. So it could be 0.0001 or 0.5 or 0.678 or something like that. It's a floating point number, but the range is between 0 and 1. So 1, if I put 1 for red, 1 for green, 1 for blue, that would be white. That's full red, full green, full blue, that's white. If I put 0, 0, 0, that's black. And the alpha is whether it's transparent or not. And we don't want it to be transparent, so this is going to stay 1 always. And then, again, this is the background render. This is that black screen that you've been seeing every time I open the window. So let's just change it to something, yeah? So I'll just do it in this load section right here. And I'm going to set them to all ones. And we should see white. Okay, does that make sense? So before we get any further, I kind of want to talk about a little bit, like this is not a teaching tutorial on the Lua language, but because I'm going to be using a table and some methods, I want to talk a little bit about that. So you have something called any complicated structure in Lua, like an array, a dictionary, a struct, a class, anything like that at all, it's just called a table in Lua. There's just one complex type in Lua. So you have like numbers, you have strings, you have things like that. You have characters. But the complex type, where you can have multiple different types bundled together, is called a table. And you can put functions in a table and everything else. So if I have a table called, Bob, and I'm going to make it local, so it doesn't complain about you. I don't want to make it global. So I got a local Bob table. Sorry, local Bob equals table. And that's literally me making an empty table called Bob, which is not very interesting. So I could put stuff in here. I could say speak equals hello, something like that. So now Bob is a table that has a variable inside of the table. It's a member variable with a string that says hello. And I could print that out. I'll just print now it's Bob.speak, right? So that all should work. We're not even going to worry about this. I'm just going to comment it out. We're going to have the black screen again. We're just going to ignore the whole screen opening, and we're just going to see this hello happening in our terminal. Okay, so we got hello down here, so Bob can speak. And that's well and good, but remember, I said we can put numbers in here and everything else, but we can also put functions in here. And then we start to get up to, like, that's similar to C. C's got a problem where you can have a struct, and you can technically put a function pointer in a struct, but you can't ever use it like it's an object, which makes it a little bit cumbersome. And then other languages go crazy with classes, like C++. They're just, there's too much going on here. Lua keeps it very simple, says, hey, I'm going to give you this thing. You can use it like a struct, and you can attach functions to it, and then I'm going to allow you to automatically pass the name. So let's attach a function to this. So I'm just going to put a function inside of this thing. So I'm going to say Bob. Oops. Shall we call it make speak? So we'll say Bob make speak, and we need to pass in Bob to this function. Okay? And at the end of the function, we'll do that. So in here, we can tell Bob to speak again. We could say, well, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna call him self. Sorry, my brain is a little bit slow today. So this variable is going to be something I pass in when I call this function. So if I say self, or I say print self.speak, okay, this is that I'm using this print line from here, but I'm using self speak instead of Bob speak. Okay, and it's because I've passed in self, but this hasn't been called yet. This is a function that I've defined, and it should be defined with function. But I haven't called it yet. So instead of this, I could call it, I could say Bob, make speak, and then I need to pass in something because it's saying self. What's self? Well, that's Bob. Okay, so I have this Bob.makeSpeak, my function, and I need to pass in Bob because Bob is this self. This turns into Bob, and then it's Bob.speak, like we've already seen. So let's see that real quick. Okay, so he's still saying hello. I removed the other one, so that one's there. Now this becomes cumbersome because why do I need to pass Bob to Bob? So they've made it where you can just automatically, you know, instead of doing this and saying self, they have this syntactic sugar. It's basically under the hood. They're just doing this for you. But if I put a colon here, I don't need to put this here. It's implicit. It's basically, it's already there. I'm not seeing it, but it's actually already there for me. And I could still call it the same way. This should still work. So basically, this function says Bob has a method called speak, and he needs to be, his name is already set to self. It's already the first argument or parameter is already self. And down here when I call it, I am populating that first argument. I'm using the dot method here, and I'm using the colon method. The colon method says we already have self in place. But I'm using dot down here, so I can't. So that's fine. It should still work. Okay, we still got hello. So now why do I need to do it here? Well, I don't. I could just do this and use the colon here. And now I have a method. I can define functions that already know about themselves, which is about as deep into object-oriented as I would like to get. It's very powerful. It does everything I need, but it doesn't do too much. And this is very good if I just want to put all of my information in a container, and I want to put my logic that works on that information in a container. And later on, I can make that container, and I could duplicate that container, give it all kinds of new names, and I don't need to hard code the names in. They're always just self, because their own name is being put in. So whatever these names end up being later, it doesn't matter. Their name is already put into themselves. So this makes it very easy. And we still have hello again. Okay, so I just wanted to go that deep into Lua. I think that you should watch a starting course on Lua. And Lua is a very simple language to learn, but I just want to dive a little bit into there. So basically, we're going to be using this. I'm going to be putting all my items into a table, and I'm going to be attaching all my functions or methods, or however you want to say, to that table. And I'm going to be using the colon operator, so the name is implicitly there already, which is going to be self. Okay. We're not going to be using Bob. We're going to be using game. I just want to show this because I actually want to put these color. I want to do that. I'm going to make a local game. And I'm going to leave it empty. And my logic here is if something is very simple, if something is just me setting a value, like setting a number or a character or a string, I'm going to put it right up in here. And I'm going to define it here, and I'll put them here. If something is more complicated than that, that needs to be loaded, like a resource, an image or something, I'm going to create a method called load that's going to mirror this love.load method. So I'm going to do that. And any other method I need, I'm going to attach that method. So if it's simple, I'm going to put it here. If it's complex, I'm going to put it in load. We won't do that just yet, but I actually want to make this setting of the background, I want to make it in its own method. So we'll call it game rand color. And this is going to be the name of the method that's going to change the background color. And we need, I need to call it a function, and I need an end on it. Okay, so I'm going to put this in here. And get rid of this. Okay, so this is in here now. So that's setting a color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this function from the keyboard where it's checking the keyboard. I don't want it to happen on escape because escape is closing it. So I'm going to add an if else. And in Lua, if else is the two words crushed together. So if else. There we go. It's else if, sorry. Yeah, that's the one. So we're going to do key again, and we're checking equality with space. So that is going to be the space key. Then, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call my function. Or it's a function, it's a method. I'm going to use both words. It doesn't really matter to me in my brain, and I think they just use the word function. But a method is a function that's attached to a struct or a class or something like that. But it's not really important. It's here or there. So what I do is I call game colon, and I could use dot. I could say game.randColor, but then I need to pass self into it, which is going to be game, and that's annoying. So if I use colon, it just automatically does that for me. Okay, so now when I press space, we should get the white background. If I haven't made any other errors. I'm not sure what's happening here. Oh, I think that it's saying I just deleted and added lines. That's for Git. So now if I press the space bar, I'm going to press it now, it goes white. And that's pretty cool, but that's not really random colors. So let's look at random colors. And random colors are in Lua. It's going to be a Lua thing, not a love thing. So we're going to look at the math library, which is already available to you. You don't have to do anything special to get it. And we want random colors. And the really nice thing about the random colors is by default, they give us a random color between 0 and 1 as a floating point. And that's just happens to be the colors that we need for setting our background color. We need something between 0 and 1. So this is it's always a pseudo random number generator. That means it's not a real random number generator. That's pretty much always in programs. It's always going to be a pseudo random, but it's going to be good enough for us. So it's this math.random. I'm just going to grab this, and then I'm going to show you the problem and the fix for this. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some local variables in here that are just going to be local to this method, and they're going to be used here, and then they're going to go out of scope. So I'm going to make an R I'm going to say local R equals, and I'm going to put this this function for the random number, and that should just give me a random number between 0 and 1, but it's a floating point, so it could be all kinds of fractional. And I'm going to put that here. I'm using the R here. So I'll do that for G and B. Okay, and we'll put those red, green, blue. And we're not messing with the alpha. The alpha, we're just going to leave it turned on. We only want to change the color. So now when we press spacebar, we should get a random color, okay? But I want you to pay attention to what our first and second color is, okay? Pay very close attention to the first color, and we'll see if it's really random. Okay, first space. So I got this kind of beige color, khaki color, and then I got this light purple and a green. Okay, so let's do it again. Space, and I got a beige color, light purple and a green. Okay, I got a beige. This is kind of you know, it's not very random. So the issue with this is the random number generator has this complex equation of how it does it. And say it's using pi or something, right? Pi has a, I'm just using this as an example. I don't think it uses pi, but let's just say pi is this never repeating string of numbers that goes on for infinity and never repeats. So that sounds nice. The problem with that is if we use pi as our random number generator, that's great because it's always going to give us a random, but not if we always start in the same place. So if pi is 3.14 and then goes on forever, infinitely, and never repeats, but if I always start at 3, I always know the next number is going to be 1 and the next number is going to be 4. So I don't want to start at 3 every time. I want to start somewhere else, somewhere down the line in a different spot each time. So what is used a lot of times is we're going to seed that number generator, and a lot of times we just use the time, you know, because the time, who knows what the milliseconds or seconds are going to be or whatever. So I'm not going to go too deep on this, but this is how a lot of random number generators, if they're not automatically seeded, how they can be seeded is just by using the time. So I'm going to use this right here. This is just a function call that is seeding the random number generator to tell it to start at a different place in its list of random numbers or pseudo random numbers. And this is something I'm going to do on load. So I'm going to put it right here in love.load. So now we remember we had the kind of the beige color, the light purple, and the green color. So hopefully we're not going to see those colors exactly the way they were before. And I have to remember to save the file. Okay. So I'm pressing it. So we got a green, purple, and a light green. Let's try it again. Blue, a greenish blue, and a light green kind of. So do you see that? It's different now. So that's going to work just perfect for us. That's going to give us random numbers we want. So that's how you in Lua or Love2D, either way, that's how you in Lua get random numbers. So you can call math random here, and you can look at it, the math library, and there's more information on it, what it does. You can get ranges and everything else out of it. But just so happens the default matches up with what we want anyway, which is a decimal number between 0 and 1. And so that's already by default perfect for us. So that's how you get the random number generator, or the random numbers. And this is how you make sure that your starting point is different. You're seeding it with os.time. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but hopefully that explains what's happening. So the reason why we talked about the game table earlier is because I want to load an image to show on the background, and I'm going to hold that image in the game table. But the issue is I don't want to put it right up here. I don't want to do that because it's kind of a loading of an image. So I want to treat it more like this, something that gets loaded in the beginning, but it's in the table. So I'm going to mirror this idea right here. I'm going to make a game load method, and then I'm going to call it from love load, because we know love automatically calls this. So if I make my own function and then put it in here, it will be called. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this function game load. And what we want is in the graphics, we go back into graphics, there is a new image right here. I believe I have it opened up right here. And this is how we load an image. So we use this love.graphics.newImage, and we need to set the file name, and then we need to set any settings. Now the settings are optional, we're not going to use them, and it's just returning to a variable. So the variable that we are going to be used is going to be held inside the game struct, so we don't have to deal with globals. We just have a simple container for everything. So I'm just going to grab this function call right here. Now again, with this table, when we're initializing, when we're creating the table, we could just put names in. I could just put background. I could just put it right there. I'll just show you. I don't want it like this, but I'll show you real quick. We have background, and the name of the image file that we're going to load is over here in images, and it's called background PNG. So we need to put the relative path, which is images background.png. And we don't need any settings. Those are optional. So this is going to load it directly, and it's going to store it in background, which is actually going to be accessible through either game:self, game self if it's inside of a game method, or outside of the method as in game.background. So I could put it in this draw. I could put it here, and I could just say game.background, because it's a background member. And we'll discuss that real quick. So to draw it, we're going to use this love.graphics.draw. And again, these are almost all optional right here. And they have defaults. So X and Y is already set to 0, and we're not going to be using any of these. So we just need this function, and we need the thing that we're drawing, which is our background. So I'm going to grab this real quick. And down here in the draw section, I'm going to put it in front. There we go. And that is okay. So the love.graphics.draw is the function to draw something, to draw a graphical image, and our graphical image is being held in game.background. So we loaded it up here. It's just called background here because we're creating the game table here. But to access it, it's a member now of the game table, so it's going to be game.background, unless it's inside of one of these methods, and then we could use self.background. Or yeah. But since it's down here, this is what it looked like. And I'll show you this, but then I'm going to move it around a bit. I don't really like it this way for simplicity. We are now displaying the Love2D, one of their logos. I'm not sure if it's their official logo or just the image they use. Okay. And the reason why we're seeing the different colors behind it is because this is a PNG image that is 800 by 600, but it has an alpha channel. So a lot of this image is see-through. So we're seeing the render behind the image. So we see I think it's a whale here, and the heart in the text. And then behind it, we're seeing the render. Okay, so the issue with this that I don't like here is I only want to keep very simple things when I'm making the table. I only want something that is set to a string or to a number. I don't want this loading large function that could fail, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of here. I'm just going to keep simple things in there. I'm going to put it in here into this load. Now this load thing is not being called anywhere. And right here, since this isn't in the table initializer, I need to use self. There. So that's self. Let's fix that up. But this is not being called. So we know this gets called automatically, but this is not being called. So we can just call it from here, the one that's being called automatically. So the game load. So that will automatically load it now. And this should still work. I'm just going to save it and show you that it works. Okay, still works. So that fixes that up. So all the game complicated loading stuff will happen in game load. The simple stuff will just be put straight into the game struct. And that's going to be very simple now. So this is just calling that. Nothing more is really going to happen here. In this, I can remove this as well and put this into a game draw, just to kind of keep it simple. It would make more sense if you're having a larger game. This setup makes a little bit more sense. It might seem a little tedious for this one, but it's okay. Either way, you can do it. But for a larger game, it's going to be nicer to keep things in their own little scopes, and then you can put them in their own little files, and you could have just the, like if you had a player, that could just be a player table with the player methods all in its own file, and they're all separate. So I'm going to say game draw. So love draw automatically gets called, and it's going to call game draw. So I'm going to create game draw. So if you had many different items, this could tell each item to draw itself, basically. So I'm just telling game, hey, draw yourself. Okay, so since we're here, we don't need this game dot background. I mean, this will probably still work, but it's nicer to use self. Because if we ever change the name of this, or like I said, we're using this as a prototype, or we're making many copies of it with different names, it can always access its whatever its name is through self. So we have our load, we have our draw, we have our random color. Love load is making the seed random and then loading our game stuff. And then this one is just calling either quit or game random to change the color to a random color. We haven't done anything in update, but we will be using this. And we have just our draw is just passing off to game draw, which draws itself. And we still have the same thing, and we can still change the color. And we still can see up here that it's called open close background color. Okay, so the one last thing I told you I was going to show you what the icon looked like. So before we finish the stream, I'd like to show you that. So to do that, I have to load up KDE Plasma 6, and Plasma 6 is brand new, so it unnecessarily takes too long to load, just a little bit annoying. But it's going to be in a nested session inside of my own session, so I don't like to do it while I'm streaming, because it's actually I'm going to have to reboot my computer later after this. So anyway, let's just show you what it looks like. So I'm going to use this Zephyr, or whatever it's called, to make a nested Xorg session and start up KDE. And when KDE was on 5 a couple days ago, this used to load really fast, but I think it's just because it's new, and maybe it's trying to find something, or it's not optimized. I'm not really sure. But it would have loaded immediately if it was 5. Okay, so this is KDE Plasma, and I'm still in the exact same system. So I'm going to open up Alacrity Terminal. It's just a terminal. It's the same one I was actually using already. And we'll see here see how we have a title up here, even though there's no title to anything. If I were to open up maybe a file manager, see how we have this title here, and we have an icon over here in the left corner. Right here, since there's nothing happening, there's no title up here. We have this Alacrity icon here, and down here we have the Alacrity icon. So I'm gonna launch up the game, and we're gonna see the icon that we loaded before. So I'm on the exact same system. This is not an embedded environment or anything. This is not, I'm literally running the same kernel, same system. I just had a nested X session running. So this is running the exact same code that you were just looking at. And there it is. There's the little Lua icon there. And if we go down here, we have a heart here, but if we hover over it, we have the Lua there. So we did set the icon. I'm not sure why it's a heart here, but anyway, we did set the icon. The icon is working. We loaded this Lua image as the icon. So you can kind of see that, and it still works the same. We have our open close background colors. That's the title. So this is what it looks like in a floating window manager, similar to Windows or GNOME or XFC or whatever you might be running. And I can close it. Okay, so I'm going to exit this nested X session now. So that's what that looked like. And yeah, I think we've covered everything for this one. Hope you enjoyed this one, and thanks for watching. Bye.